Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3. We'll always have Tom Paris, which is a great play on words from the title of a Next Generation episode. We'll always have Paris, though I don't really see any correlation between those two episodes. That one was about Captain Picard connecting with an old flame, and then weird time things were happening, but still pretty cool. So before I get more into my thoughts on this episode, just wanted to say that I am streaming live. And I don't typically do that. I like to record ahead of time. I like to edit out sounds like you probably heard my dog drinking his water and his tag is hitting against the metal bowl. That's the sound you just heard in the background, probably. And let me make sure my microphone is on. Okay, make sure you are able to hear me. All right. And yeah, normally I like to do a edited video and I'd add pictures and music, little theme song at the beginning and all that stuff, but I just quite simply do not have the time for that this week. So I needed to just jump on here and give my thoughts. So here I am. So yeah, quite enjoyed this episode. What a lovely little episode. There were some things that I didn't like as much, but overall, I'm enjoying where season 2 is heading. Season 1 was, or rather, episode 1 was very season 1-esque, very kind of mediocre, but last week's episode was really good. This one was also, I think, better than the average season 1 episode. I would probably put this one in a ranking in between episode 1 and 3. I think 3 or 2 rather. Last week's episode would probably still be my favorite. This one would be second place, and episode 1 would be first. So it's not like it's getting better and better every week, but they're on a good roll. I really enjoy this. Finally, Star Trek Voyager getting some love. I really enjoyed that. I'm doing a rewatch of Star Trek Voyager as we speak. So that was fun for me. I still want them to see a little bit more Deep Space Nine at some point. Mariner did reference Deep Space Nine. Apparently, she used to serve on Deep Space Nine, which actually we did see in a flashback previously in season 1. So I want some more Deep Space Nine, maybe an extended flashback of her time there, or returning to Deep Space Nine. We also got a little Easter egg of the Quarks. The Quarks has a franchise, he's got a chain now, and we've seen that before. I don't believe this is the first time we've seen that, but it's always fun. So little Deep Space Nine references, but mainly Voyager, and that was a lot of fun. This episode also gives us exactly what I asked for, what I've been complaining about for since last season, and that's I'll get into that more specifically in just a moment. But there's been one major complaint that I've had, and they fixed it and they addressed it, and they actually were talking to me directly, which I loved. Or the writers were actually talking through the characters. This is a little meta, and I liked it. I was super stoked for it. I see my brother here in the chat was disappointed in this one. Sorry, least favorite of the season. Sorry to hear that. As I don't know if you caught it, I said this is probably my second favorite of the season. I definitely would put this over episode 1. I quite enjoyed it quite a lot, although I did have some issues. So let me get into it. There's 3 different storylines, so I'll go through the storylines. And the first one I'll talk about is the one I consider the A plot, which is the Tendi and Mariner, and that's where, as I just alluded to, they kind of addressed my biggest complaint, which is they always stick Tendi and Rutherford together every freaking time. And not only is it that they just do that every time, but I also don't like Tendi and Rutherford's storylines a lot of the times. I think they're less funny. They're less interesting. I always, my eyes glaze over whenever they pan over to Tendi and Rutherford. I'm like, okay, I guess we got to sit and watch this for a little bit. I hate that they do that. So far they have avoided that in 2 of the 3 episodes. The one where they did do that happens to be my least favorite episode, which was the first episode. And they address it in a very meta way. I love how Mariner was just like, So yeah, let's mix it up a little bit. And someone's like, the writers were talking through her. Yeah, let's mix it up a little bit. Yeah, let's mix it up a little bit. And it wasn't just that they threw them together just for the sake of throwing them together. It was very meaningful interactions that they had, and very strong character development for both of them. And I'll just jump kind of right to the resolution of this storyline, where Mariner in the end says, "You know what? I just really, I never really opened up to you because I'm afraid of losing people." And Tindy is just like, "Yeah, I'm just so, concerned about impressing people and making everyone happy that I don't get to take the time to get to know each other or get to know people." And I thought that was very genuine. That was a very true feeling interaction. It wasn't just like something that they kind of threw together like the old sitcom thing, or like, "Oh, well, now we're sharing our true feelings," and it's just kind of meaningless. This was very meaningful for both characters, because all throughout this episode, they are kind of they're realizing that they don't know each other at all, that they really are just more coworkers than friends, and then in the end they develop into a friendship, and it was earned, it was real, it was genuine. So loved their relationship in this episode. Mark, I'm sorry that you did not, but I thought it was really great, from a character standpoint. Also, there's the thing of like coming up again of Tindy trying to fight against the stereotypes of being an Orion. I thought it might have been just kind of a one-off. They introduced it in episode 9 of last year when they were doing the holodeck movie thing, and Mariner cast her as a pirate, and she's like, "That's a stereotype. Why does everyone think Orions are all stereotypes? Why does everyone think we're all pirates?" And so she's fighting against that, and that continues. And I find that very interesting. But they also had a moment of comedy in there when Tindy is like, "Why does everybody think Orions are just pirates and thieves?" And then she goes, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go. You know what? We could go see my pirate cousin here at the Pirates and Thieves outpost," which I thought. Was a really funny moment. A lot of comedy in there, and when they go down to Orion, and Tindy tells Mariner to talk like a pirate, I knew exactly what was coming, but I still cracked up laughing when she goes, "Arr, RBT," and the Orion guy is like, "Why are you talking like that?" Uh, I I love that so much, and I loved all their girl time. We're gonna have some girl time. Um, I think there needs to be a boy episode. I think it's time for Boimler and Rutherford to team up at some point. I don't believe that as I can recall that that's ever happened. There's been the four of them together, or it's been Rutherford, Tindy, Boimler, Mariner. Let's as Mariner says in this episode, let's mix it up. So I would love to see Boimler Rutherford team up at some point this season. And Allison in the chat says didn't like the Boimler stuff. I would have mixed feelings on that, but I'm going to get to that in just a second. um, to me, the strength was definitely the Tindy and Mariner stuff, and I love how they resolved it by Mariner just deciding to crash into the ship. And I wanted to point out that there's this dude who's like, "Captain, there's a shuttle coming right to our ship," and I'm pretty sure that's the same dude who was like, "Captain, there's a giant head floating in space." So I think that's probably going to be like the reoccurring gag that they might do this season, with that one bald dude always pointing at Captain there. Just his delivery is so good, the way that he delivers the lines when weird things are happening. I don't know how often they could go to that well without it becoming repetitive, but if they're going to continue that gag, hopefully they're able to expand on that. Another reoccurring theme that I've noticed here now, 2 out of the 3 episodes are ending with Mariner in the holding cell with her friend sitting on the outside. And I wonder if that's going to be a recurring thing. I don't remember if that happened a lot in season 1 or not. I just don't remember all of season 1. I rewatched the last 3 episodes recently, but not the rest of it. So I don't remember, but 2 out of the 3 so far have been that way. But I love how Mariner was sticking up for her new friend. That they really had bonded, and she was sticking up for her and made up this ridiculous story about a bee, which was just kind of silly, but uh, it was good. Um, so Mark says in the chat he agrees with me that the Tindy and Mariner stuff were the strength of the episode. Sounds like maybe you didn't like the other stuff very much. I definitely didn't like them as much as the Mariner and Tindy stuff, but I didn't have a huge problem with them. So let's get into the Boimler stuff. I do have there are things that I really liked about it and things that I didn't like. Um, I did love that we finally got the threshold reference that I've been calling for. They've got to mention, at least mention that episode. I was hoping for a more direct parody than what they did. They just kind of mentioned it where it was like, oh, isn't he a slug still? uh, and they so I love that they at least referenced that episode. I just watched it recently, and like this episode is so ridiculous. Lower Decks has got to parody it, and they didn't directly parody it, but they did give it a little shout out. And I love how they're bringing in the Star Trek commemorative plates. Sorry. It is a little, a lot of times you just have to suspend disbelief with this show because they're not going to have freaking commemorative plates in the 24th century. That's ridiculous. But it's totally mocking the actual commemorative plates that they had, like, I don't remember how many years ago, but I remember those commercials. And it was just kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Mark is saying in the chat he had a huge problem with the Shax gag. I thought you would. I'll get to Shax in just a moment. But as far as the Boimler stuff, I liked that they brought Tom Paris on. I loved that they got Robert Duncan McNeil to do the voice. And I actually thought it was a good story for Boimler to kind of struggle with finding his place on the Cerritos again, and I liked that he didn't have to do it with Mariner because it's always you got to pair up, just as you always have to pair up Tindy and Rutherford, you always had to pair up Mariner and Boimler. I like that Boimler was kind of on his own journey. I really, really did like that, and I thought it was funny that he couldn't open any of the doors, he couldn't get any food. I feel like he just should have asked somebody to fix that. Like, it shouldn't have been. He didn't even try to ask anyone, but again, suspending disbelief. I think where I had the biggest issue is when his first encounter with Tom Paris, when he comes down and is acting all crazy and go hoo, 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 and Tom Paris is like, oh, it's a Kazon. So that is so dumb. I've seen that gag in many commercial or cartoons, animated shows, whatever, maybe sitcoms. I don't know. It's just a gag that I've seen a lot where somebody gets all dirty and messed up and acts all crazy, and somebody else thinks that they're their enemy and starts beating them up. That's dumb. And Tom Paris knows that there's no Kazon in the Alpha Quadrant. I guess they're playing he has PTSD or whatever. That is probably my least favorite part of the whole episode, honestly. But it was fun overall to have Tom Paris aboard the Cerritos, even though it seemed to be for no apparent reason. I don't know if I really understood why he was there, but I just thought that was a lot of fun. And for the most part, I didn't have a huge problem with the Boimler storyline, except for that was kind of dumb. Now let's get into the Shax gag, as my brother said. Mark says in the chat that he has a huge problem with it, and he will rant about it in his review. Well, you can rant in your review. For me, I have very, very mixed feelings on that. On the one hand, it's just like, really, I mean, it kind of undercuts his death scene in season 1. It seemed like that Lower Decks was maybe pulling away from the other Trek shows and doing something different, since somebody can die. But it is a Trek show, so it is doing what all the other Trek shows do and bringing someone back to life. And I actually, if they're going to do it, I actually thought the gag did really work for me. I personally would rather that they just kept him dead. but if they wanted to bring him back, just to bring him back for no reason and show us from the lower decks perspective, because you think about it, when all these characters come back to life, what are the lower decks people thinking? Oh, Spock's alive again. How did that happen? And I loved how Mariner, she even mentioned the Quattro as a possibility. They were talking about all the different possible ways that he could come back to life. It was a great parody of Star Trek, because Star Trek doesn't kill off characters generally, or they don't stay dead, with the exception of like Tasha Yar and Dax, because the Denise Crosby wanted to leave the show, and Terry Farrell got canned, or she wasn't happy with the show, so they wrote her off and killed her. Or I think she wanted to leave the show, but they killed her, and she didn't want to be killed off. But anyways, it's rare the character stated, and then Dax comes back and as a different actor because she's a Trill. So even then, she technically didn't stay dead. So it's what Star Trek does. So I kind of like that they poked fun at it, and I found it interesting that they showed us from the lower decks perspective. Because they really would be like, why are these people coming back to life? So I actually overall kind of enjoyed the Shax thing. I think the thing that really threw me off the most in this whole episode was the stupid Kazon thing. But I thought that the Shax thing that worked for me, though overall I still would have preferred if he stayed dead. And I'm also confused who the chief of security is now, because they showed that the Tamarian dude is still there. Is his name Kayshawn? Or did he just say Kayshawn, his eyes open? Regardless, he's there still. And then Shax is also there. So I don't know who's the chief of security now. Overall, I would have preferred they kept him dead, but they're going to bring him back. I actually really like that gag. I also wanted to mention something. I got to jump back to this. This is in the Mariner storyline. Gotta mention this. Let's not bury the lead here. Mariner just came out as pansexual. She's talking about how she has dated men, women, non-binary individuals. I thought that was wonderful. And I like Tendy's response, like, really? Because I've only ever seen you with Boimler. So, which is very true. Although, again, I don't want Boimler and Mariner to hook up, and I really don't think that they are going to do that. But I got to echo something that I saw in Jessie Ginger's review, where she said that, this is nice that they're telling us these things. Same thing in Loki. They told us he's bisexual. But where's the show in us? Like, I think they really at some point do need to show us Mariner's sexuality and not just state it. If all she ever does is hook up with men or interested in men, then that makes it a little less meaningful. So I think at a certain point, the LGBTQ community is going to stop getting excited about, oh, look, Loki's bisexual. Oh, look, Mariner's pansexual. If all they're ever doing is hooking up with any heterosexual relationships. So show us the money. We need to see that. I need to see Mariner with a hook up with a girl or a non-binary individual at some point this season if she's going to say that. So that would be the only downside of that. But I think it is great that Star Trek is starting to fold in. They've had 9 binary characters and a trans character in Discovery, and now Mariner is pansexual. And Mark says, I think I heard before the season she was going to come out as pansexual. I did not hear that. So that was kind of like a, just nonchalant little, oh yeah, by the way, I'm pansexual, which I think is perfect. I think that's the way it needs to be. So I love the way that they did that. And Allison says, I would have liked more Paris. I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted him to be in it too much. I think just a little silly cameo is totally fine. With me. Oh, and I also have to mention, I forgot to mention how Boimler was calling it boy, which is it's kind of the same thing that Ransom did with TOS. He's like, yeah, I like to call it void. It just saves a lot of time. And then Mariner started saying void. And she's like, you're right. That did save me a lot of time. So a lot of good jokes in this episode. Um, if I had had time to do a pre-recorded edited video, I would have more time to organize my thoughts and talk about more of the jokes that I did find were very funny. But I thought that there were a lot of good jokes in this. Again, to me, it's just Tom Paris thinking he's a Kazon thing. I was just like, um, I am going to get going now. It's been going for 20 minutes now. So I'm going to wrap this up. Next week, I will be back with an edited, pre-recorded video with pictures and fancy things and all of that sort of stuff. So if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel and check that out. Now, before I go, though, I do have to give it a rating out of 10. My rating out of 10 for this episode is an 8. So I gave the first one a 7. Last week was a 9, and this week is an 8. So right in between the other two. To me, Lower Decks is really kicking butt this season after the first episode. I'm really enjoying the direction that they're going. I'm really enjoying their mixing it up, as Mariner said. I would love to see them continue to do that. Personally, I don't want to see a Rutherford and Tendi side story ever again, or maybe once in a while, just for old time's sakes. But I would love it if they moved away from that. I want to see, as I said, Boimler and Rutherford next time, and more of them all together. And we can bring Jet into the fold too. Jet made a little cameo here. Mark and I were talking last week about whether or not we'd see him again, and a very, very, very minor role. He just comes in for a second in this episode, but love to see him in the fold too. Let's mix things up. Let's keep going. I'm very optimistic about this season. I'm very, very, very much enjoying it so far. All right. Check out my review next week. Check out all of my Star Trek stuff. I've got favorite and least favorite of Next Generation, TOS, and DS9. So I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.